Welcome back. Good afternoon. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope everyone is happy and healthy and keeping sane and enjoying and actually making the most of the time with our families and the time with social distancing. Maybe learning a little bit more and picking up some extra hobbies, being a little bit creative. I want to share a Gemara. I want to learn a Gemara together that in our live Shiur we've already studied, and it's a very well-known Gemara. It's a very famous Gemara. But I want to give a completely different approach to this Gemara that I saw recently. The Gemara is found near the very, very end of Maseches Brachos. It happens to be that many of our stories, many of our agaritas that we learn together involve Rabbi Akiva. Last week we had the Gemara of Rabbi Akiva, Kol de Avid Rachmana Letav Avid, and this week we're going to have another Gemara, which ultimately gets Rabbi Akiva killed. So let's begin. The Gemara says, Tana Rabbanu, we learned in a Braisa, Pam Achas Gozra Malchus Harsha'a Shelo Yasku Yisrael Batorah, that the evil empire, not the Yankees, the other evil empire, the evil empire of the Roman regime, the Romans, they outlawed that Jews should not be allowed to learn Torah. Shelo Yasku Yisrael Batorah, we shouldn't be allowed to study, to engage, to learn in Talmud Torah. Right? And Papus ben Yehuda, umatzol Rabbi Akiva shehaya makil kihilos berabim. And there's a man named Papus ben Yehuda. We're going to learn a little bit about who Papus ben Yehuda is. There's a disagreement, there's a discussion about who this Papus ben Yehuda is. But suffice it to be, he comes, he's walking along, umatzol Rabbi Akiva, he finds Rabbi Akiva shehaya makil kihilos berabim, that he is teaching Torah publicly, makil kihilos, he's congregating people in this public way, he's convening like an assembly of Jews, v'osek b'Torah, and they're learning Torah together. Amarle, Papus says to Rabbi Akiva, Akiva, calls him by his first name, we'lo see that might be important. Akiva, I atam yisyarid b'malchus, are you not scared of the malchus? Are you not scared of the government? Are you not scared of being caught of the Romans? Amarlo, Rabbi Akiva says to him, and this is what we know, Emshol l'cha mashal. Let me give you a mashal. Let me give you a parable to which I could explain my actions and how and why I'm doing what I am doing. L'maha davar domer, to see what is this comparable to. L'shu'al shehayu mahalech al gav hanahar. It is comparable to a fox, a shu'al, who is walking along on the side of the river, by the river banks, v'ra'a dagim, and he looks in the river and he sees that there are fish, and they are gathering from one place to another place, they keep on shooting around, right? Ma'amar lehem, the shu'al, the fox, looks at the fish and he asks the fish, Mipnei ma'atem borchim, what are you running away from? Why do you keep on running away? Amrulo, right? It's a parable. So the fish and the fox are speaking. So the fish say back to the shu'al, the fox, Mipnei rishatos shemeviin aleinu b'nei adam. We're nervous from the nets, right? The fishing nets that people come, they bring and they try to catch us. They try to catch us with their fishing nets. Amar lehem. So the fox says, fox is a chacham. The fox is a great idea. Amar lahem, ritzonchem shetalu liyabasha. Why don't you just come to the yabasha? Why don't you come to the dry land? That's what you should do. You'll be safe from the nets then, right? V'nader aniva atem, and we will all dwell together. Kishem shedar avosai im avoseichem, just as our ancestors dwelt together. Now, I don't know if anyone discusses this question, but it's a weird thing, because when in history did the shu'al and the fish, when did they ever dwell together? You're going to tell me that in the Mabul, but we know that the fish didn't come into the Mabul, right? They didn't come into the Teva, they didn't come into the ark. So I'm not sure exactly in the parable why the shu'al says, come, let's dwell together, just like our ancestors dwell together. But let's leave that leave it as it may. Shadaru avoseim avoseichem. The fish then said back to the shu'al, to the fox, you fox, you have a good reputation, Mr. Fox. You have a reputation that you're one of the most clever of the animals. You're the cleverest, if that's a word. You're the most clever of all of the animals. Right? In davening we say a pokeach ivrim. Right? In halacha, pikeach is someone who's wise, who knows halacha, who knows stuff. In davening we say pokeach ivrim, to open the eyes of the blind. So pikeach is a person that sees, that has clarity of sight, but also of thought and intellect. So the fox is the one who's the pikeach shebechayot. He's the cleverest of the animals. Lo pikeach ata, ela tipesh ata. So the fish says, no. What is this? You're not the most clever. You're a tipesh. You're stupid. You're an idiot. You're dumb. You're a fool. Right? Uma, and then he explains why is he calling him such a fool. Uma b'makom chiyutenu anu misyarin. If in a place that we live in our natural habitat, b'makom chiyutenu, in the place of our living, anu misyarin, we're scared. B'makom mitasenu. So what about if we would go in a place of our death? Alachas kama v'kama, meaning in the climate that's going to clearly induce our death. Of course we're going to die, right? You're saying we should leave the water and go with you. That's asinine. That's ridiculous, right? You're giving us this wonderful advice, Mr. Fax. Af anachnu, the fish says also us, meaning this applies to us. Achshav, now, sha'anu yoshvim, Rabbi Akiva is saying, this applies to us, to the Jewish people right now. He's talking to Papus ben Yehuda. Achshav sha'anu yoshvim, now, that we are sitting, va'oskim b'Torah, and we're dwelling, we're engaged in Torah, we're learning Torah. Shekasuv ba, and how do we describe Torah? Kihu chayecha va'orech yamecha, that it is our life, and it lengthens our days. Right, we say this basically. We say a type of this phrase, I guess an adulterated type of this phrase in davening in Marav every night. Kihem chayenu v'orech yamenu. That Torah is described as our life and it lengthens our days. Kach im anu holchim mevatim mimenu. So what would happen if we would be mevatel? If we would leave Talmud Torah, right? We're going to leave Talmud Torah. We're not going to learn anymore. Alachas kama v'kama, right? So just like if the fish would leave its natural habitat, it would die, right? So too, for us to leave our natural habitat of learning Torah, we're just going to abandon Torah, chas v'shalom. So also that would put us at great peril. Amru. So that was the story. That was the conversation back between Rabbi Akiva and Papus ben Yehuda. Amru. Later, the Rabbanan, the sages, the Chazal, they reported that what? Lo hayu yamim mu'atim. It was only a few days after this interaction where Papus is walking. He sees Rabbi Akiva teaching Torah. They have this conversation, the parable of the fox and the fish. It was only a couple of days later that Papus had a point. Ad shetafsu Rabbi Akiva. That the Romans caught Rabbi Akiva. Shetafsu, they grabbed him. V'chabshu v'veisaysu, they threw him in jail. V'tafsu lePapus ben Yehuda. And guess what happened? Also, Papus ben Yehuda was also thrown in jail. Why? V'chaveshu etzlo, sorry, and they were next, and they were in the same cell together. Fate would have it. Papus ben Yehuda and Rabbi Akiva in the same cell. Amar lo. Rabbi Akiva says to Papus, mi aviachalakan. Papus, who brought you here? Amar le. He says to them, he doesn't really answer the question, he says, Amar le. Ashrecha Rabbi Akiva. Fortunate is Rabbi Akiva. Why? So when he said, who brought you here? He's not asking who brought you here. I think he's asking what brought you here. Like, it's clear, Rabbi Akiva is saying it's clear why I'm here. I'm here because I taught Torah publicly. But Papus, you're against this. What did you do that the Romans got upset at you? So, Papus, what brought you here? Rabbi Akiva, fortunate are you, Rabbi Akiva, shenit pasta al divrei Torah. Because you, Rabbi Akiva, you were brought here because of divrei Torah. But oilo Papus. Papus is saying, woe is to me, woe is to Papus, shenitpas al devarim betelim. Because I was brought here al devarim betelim, I like menial things on account of like meaningless and nothingness. Okay? And then the Gemara says, at that point, that the Romans came out, they took Rabbi Akiva out, and ultimately they killed him, and it was Man Kriyas Shema, it was the time of Kriyas Shema, and Rabbi Akiva was killed at that point. So just one very quick point in terms of why fish. We are going to get to the idea of the whole back and forth of Papus and Rabbi Akiva. But first of all, fish. Fish, I think the two main explanations is that fish are constantly moving. A fish is never idle, a fish never stops, and so too a Jew. A Jew always has to be moving, always has to be doing, always has to be accomplishing, always has to be trying to grow. We can never just sit on our laurels and sit on what we've accomplished and just sit back and relax. Time is of the essence. Time is a commodity. It's a very, very valuable and precious commodity, and we always have to be moving. We always have to be going, have to be striving, have to be aspirational and ambitious, and moving and going and doing. That's one. Idea is also that fish, when they swim, they always swim upstream, and that's the life of a Jew. That a Jew is always fighting the current, right? The outside forces, and it doesn't have to be the society as a whole. It could also simply just be that our Yetzer Hara is always pushing us to do something, and a Jew is always fighting upstream. So we're going to have two understandings of the Gemara. One is going to assume that Papus ben Yehuda was a tremendous tzaddik, and the other is going to assume that Papus ben Yehuda was not such a tzaddik. Not a horrible person, but just a person of I guess, a lower caliber. So, and why is that? We're just making this up? No. There's a Gemara in Tanis that has a Papus ben Yehuda, and Papus is a tremendous tzaddik. And then there's also a Papus ben Yehuda that's mentioned in Gittin, and he is not such a tzaddik. So we're going to go through, it's going to be a very yeshiva shiur. The first approach is according with the Geraz's opinion that Papus ben Yehuda was a tzaddik, okay? And that's going to be put forth by Rav Baruch Ber Leibowitz. Rav Baruch Ber was a Rav. He grew up in Slutsk. Slutsk was I don't think such a large town, but it produced a lot of major Talmidei Chachamim. Rav Aaron Kotler was born in Slutsk, and Rav Baruch Ber was one of the great Talmidim of Rav Chaim Brisker, of Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, and he and both people that were going to basically take their learning. Rav Baruch Ber Leibowitz, he was born around 1860-ish, I think, and he died almost in 1940. And then we're going to have another approach by Rav Yerucham Levovitz, who was the Mishkiach of the Mir Yeshiva. And Rav Yerucham Levovitz, in his Sefer Das Torah, he's going to take the other approach where Papus was not such a great person. So, first of all, now let's go. Now, approach number one is going to be the more basic approach, probably what we are thinking. Papus ben Yehuda, the Gemara in Tanis tells us that there were two brothers, Papus and Lulyanus. The Gemara tells us in Daf Yurches Amud Beis in Tanis, says that the emperor's daughter, the Roman emperor's daughter at the time, was found dead. She was killed. And so the emperor, what did he do? The Romans, they blamed the entire Jewish community on the death. And therefore they were going to wipe out many people. So Papus and Lulyanus, what did they do? They basically came to one of the Roman officials and they said, we murdered her. We killed it. And basically, ultimately, that's why Papus is thrown in jail. Why Lulyanus in this case is not mentioned, I can't answer. But Rashi here says that the Papus in our story in the Gemara that meets Rabbi Akiva is a tzaddik, right? And he is the Papus that kind of like gave up his life and said he said he killed this emperor's daughter in order to save, tens or hundreds or thousands of Jews. Now you could, I don't know if this is true, but earlier in the Gemara, when he first sees Rabbi Akiva teaching Torah, he calls him Akiva. He doesn't call him Rabbi Akiva. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe that's like a little bit of a raya. Maybe that's a little bit of a proof that Papus was a tremendous tzaddik and a big Talmid Chacham. That he was like almost like a colleague of Rabbi Akiva, and he was able to call Rabbi Akiva by his just calling him Akiva and not necessarily calling him by his by his title with as Rabbi Akiva. Okay, so the first approach is going to be that Papus was a tzaddik. So if that's true, we have to ask really, what was the underlying debate between Papus and Rabbi Yehuda? Was there merit? Was there any merit at all to Papus's argument to Rabbi Akiva, that maybe Rabbi Akiva should have been more cautious than to publicly flout his Judaism, like almost like a public display of his Yiddishkeit against the Roman decree? And if there is merit to his position, right? If there was merit to Papus's position, so how is it that Rabbi Akiva's parable of the fox and the fish, how does that How does that refute Papus's decision? So Baruch Ber, he addresses this, and once again, he's going according to the Gura's explanation that Papus was righteous, he was a scholar, he was a tremendous man, and he raises a more basic question. We know that life is a major guiding value, and living is a major value in Yahadus, in Judaism, and that we are commanded and it's a mitzvah to give up to violate a mitzvah, to violate an avera, a sin, to transgress an avera in order to live. Right? Someone says, "I'm going to kill you if you eat this non-kosher hamburger. Turn the light on Shabbos. I have to give up my life." Right? V'chai bahem. The Torah tells me that I have to live through the mitzvos. And the Gemara explains, v'chai bahem, why does the pasuk tell me that I have to live through the mitzvos? It means v'lo yamuchim, that I'm not supposed to die for mitzvos. There's an exception. Right? There are a couple of exceptions. There are three major exceptions. Those exceptions are the three, what we call cardinal averas. The three mitzvos that I'm not allowed to do even if I'm threatened with my life. Right? Those are murder, adultery, and avodah zarah. Those are known as the three cardinal sins. If someone says, bow to this idol, or I'll kill you, I have to get killed. Somebody says, killed Joe, or I'll kill you, I can't commit murder. I have to give up my life. Okay? So first of all, Baruch Ber asks, he says, what are you talking about? Talmud Torah is not one of the three cardinal sins. Right? So the government issues this decree that are designed to uproot Torah. Why am I obligated to sacrifice my life for that? Right? What's Rabbi Akiva doing? Right? So the Gemara does have another exception. It says a person is not allowed to give up their life for a regular avera unless it's a time of basic decrees that there was a foreign government and they're basically anti-Jew and everything's anti-Semitic and their goal is to uproot Torah and Judaism and Kedusha and godliness. And here, what did the Romans were trying to do that? They wanted to completely get rid of Torah. So at a time when there's this government, these anti-Semitic laws, so you know what? The Gemara in Sanhedrin and Daf Ayin Daled tells us that you have to give up your life, even, the Gemara says, for a mitzvah kala. A light mitzvah, a small mitzvah. Interestingly, the Gemara gives an example of a small mitzvah, right? But the Rambam writes in his Perush on Pirkei Avos, he writes interestingly that a person has to be careful. The Mishnah says with a light mitzvah, as careful as a person is with a strict mitzvah, with a big mitzvah. So the Rambam wants to know what's a light mitzvah. So he says, he gives two examples. One of the examples he gives is like learning Lashon HaKodesh, learning Hebrew. I wish my Hebrew was better. But he says that's like a small mitzvah, a light mitzvah. But at the time of Shemad, at the time where there's persecution against the Jewish people, a person even has to give up their life, right? A person's even obligated to sacrifice his life for any mitzvah. And since this Roman government, the regime, had decreed that the Jews should not engage in Torah study at all, and the survival of Torah itself, demands that the decree be disobeyed, Rabbi Akiva was obviously justified in risking his life to teach Torah. So therefore, this is Baruch Ber's question, right? He obviously, Rabbi Akiva was doing the right thing. He was risking his life to teach Torah. But no. What was Papus' real challenge? Why did Papus challenge his behavior if Rabbi Akiva was correct? Because it was a time of persecution. He had to give up his life. Why was Papus challenging his behavior? So the explanation, I think, could be, I think Baruch Ber says, is that what he questioned Rabbi Akiva's practice of doing it makil kihilot. It was this public assembly to teach Torah. Rabbi Akiva, just do it in a more clandestine way. Do it more privately. Do it more hidden. You're not endangering yourself. Go to a basement. Go to a bunker. Go to a back room. Why are you taking such a drastic step of publicly flouting this against this Roman decree, which was sure to arouse the anger and the wrath of all of the Romans? So that's what Rabbi Akiva replied to Papus' question, with the argument of the fox and the fish. The fox is saying, right, if you're going to dwell in the water, then you know what? you're in mortal danger. You could be killed by, as the Gemara says, by the nets, right? By the nets. The human beings, they're going to come, they're going to put their nets out, they're going to trap you. So just come on the dry land where that danger doesn't exist. The fish therefore says, your argument is ridiculous. Your argument is foolish. Why? Because if we go up on the land, that's certain death. While we're in the water, there's a chance. It's not certain. It might happen, right? We're not sure whether it's going to happen. So it makes no sense. It makes no sense to abandon the source of life, which is which the fish are saying, which is our water, right? And leave the water, which is our basic source of life, right? Notwithstanding the inherent danger, right, that we might get. And that's exactly what Rabbi Akiva is saying to Papus. The Torah is the lifeblood of the Jewish people. It's our very source of life. It's our own vitality. And in order for us to survive, right? If we would stop learning Torah, Rabbi Akiva is saying, we would stop learning Torah, right? Then what? Right? Then we would surely die. And what he's saying is, in order to survive, the people need not only to learn Torah, but an environment of Torah. We can't relegate Talmud Torah to this basement, to this bunker, to this back room. That's not the way Torah. There needs to be also an environment of Torah, almost a misgeret of Torah. And if we don't do it publicly, if we don't do it naturally, where it's like our life, and we abandon it that way, we're abandoning our vitality. And we can't exist without like public Torah study. Public Torah study doesn't need to be in the parks, right? There's got to be maybe a separation of church and state. But it has to be that we can't be hiding our life source. We can't be totally removing it and going away. So he's saying, I'm not creating unnecessary danger for myself, right? By teaching in these large assemblies. I'm simply living the way a Jew can exist. That's the only way that a Jew can exist. And if that carries some danger, so be it. So that's the first approach. That's the first approach by Rabbi Baruch Ber. Papus is a tzaddik. He wants him to, he cares about Torah. He knows that Rabbi Akiva is doing the correct thing halachically. He just feels that the public piece is what is wrong. Now we're going to turn to Rav Yerucham Levavitz. Rav Yerucham Levavitz says, no, he paskins, but he says that this Papus in his Gemara is about the Papus who's mentioned in the Gemara in Gittin, who's this person who's not such a tzaddik. He's a person of much lower caliber, and following this approach, it's beautiful. He explains the debate between Papus and this regular Papus guy, okay, and Rabbi Akiva as almost this age-old debate about how to deal with persecution and how to deal with anti-Semitism. Now, the Jews, having experienced, right, the Roman occupation and all of their harsh decrees, banning Torah, banning mitzvos, Papus contended that, you know what, there's an easy way out. What's the way out? There's an easy way out. How can we avoid this? How can we avoid being killed and being decimated and our whole life being like, torn apart? He says, you know what? What's the problem is the public display of our Jewish identity. That we don't need to be out there. It's our unique practices, right? The fact that we wear tzitzis, the fact that we daven, the fact that we learn, right? All our Talmud Torah, all our observance, our Shmirat HaMitzvot, that's what's causing all the hatred. The reason that we're hated is because we're doing the mitzvos. And Papus have a great idea. Leave the mitzvos. Leave the water. Come join, right, the Shiur. Come join me on the dry land. The dry land is what? Is no Torah observance. And you know what? If we're not different and we assimilate and we're like everybody else and we don't walk in the street with our lulav and we don't build a sukkah and we don't blow a shofar and we don't have to have our own kosher restaurants and all that and we're like them, that's the way to keep us safe. Right? And Rabbi Akiva says that's ridiculous. Right? To the contrary, the Torah is our vitality. It's our source of life. Right? And that's actually the only thing that's going to save us from oppression. Right? There's the famous line, I don't know who said it, but if the Jews don't make kiddush, right? If we don't do mitzvos, if we're not mekadesh ourselves, if we don't do what we're supposed to do, then what? Then the goyim, then the non-Jews, they make havdalah. We sometimes think we have people that are like a papus in life who says, no. the way we get along with all the with living with the Russians, with the Germans, with the French, with the Moroccans, with the Americans, with whatever gullus we're in, the way we'll survive is if we're like them, and as if the Meshech Chachma, Rameir Simcha of Dvinsk, in his work on Chumash in Parshas Bechukosai, says a very popular thing. He basically was almost a nevuah, because the Meshech Chachma died in the 1920s, and he has a passage in Parshas Bechukosai where he almost presents like this brilliant theory of all of Jewish history, and in Galus. He's living in Dvinsk. He's living, I guess that might be in Lithuania, and he refers to all the people who forget like about their Jewish identity and about their origins and about what makes you unique. And they say that there are people, and check this out, that they think that Berlin, he writes this, that Berlin is Yerushalayim. And he writes that those people and that community and those communities, I guess in the outskirts of Berlin he's speaking about, right? The people, and we know that when he says Berlin is Yerushalayim, that he's talking about their assimilation and thinking that now the home of the Jewish people is Berlin, and we don't need maybe Israel, and we're going to be just like the Germans. He writes in Bechukosai that they are doomed to destruction. And he writes that it's not surprising that a Jew is should be willing to give his life to sanctify Kadosh Baruch Hu's name, because it's natural that when one is confronted ultimately with the opposite force, his real essence is going to come to the fore, and that is according to Rabbi Yerucham Levavitz. That's the second way you understand this Gemara, which is an amazing way to understand this Gemara. It's basically anti-Semitism. How do I deal with it? Do I avoid it, which is Papus ben Yehuda, the non-tzaddik Papus ben Yehuda, or Rabbi Akiva is like, no way, right? If a Jew doesn't make Kiddush, so the non-Jews make Havdalah, and that's what it means when Bilam told us that we're an Am Levadad Yishkon, that we are a people that dwells alone. It doesn't mean that we're alone. It doesn't mean that we're alone with no friends. It's that we have to be alone. We have to be unique. We have to be special, right? It doesn't mean we can't interact ever, but we have to be our own people, our own. We have to have our own nationhood. We have a fidelity to everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants of us, right? And when we lose that, when we lose who we are, then when we try to be like other people, that might be the biggest turnoff to the other nations. Right? If you don't stand for nothing, you can fall for anything. So this is this Gemara. We have two approaches. Whether it's just ultimately the fight was it public versus not public, and even public, just having a Jewish environment according to Rabbi Baruch Ber Leibowitz. That is what Rabbi Akiva held so dear, or is it a major age-old debate between the other Papus and Rabbi Akiva, according to how we deal with anti-Semitism, how we deal with persecution? Do we compromise our own values, or do we assimilate, or do we keep them strong and have our uniqueness to who we are? So everyone should have a great week. Very, very enjoyable to learn, and I look forward to next week again. Have a wonderful and safe week. Have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos, and be productive and learn. Stark.